A good group here. I'll just go ahead and get started. Now we're at 11:02. Feel free to drop anything in the chat. I'm going to tackle this one today on my own, so feel free to interrupt me. You can raise your hand if you want me to stop at any point in time, but I'll leave plenty of time towards the end for questions. I've prepared probably about 30 minutes or so the presentation itself, and hopefully we can get 20 or 30 minutes of Q&A at the end. I can stick around for a little bit as well, so don't, it won't be your only opportunity to ask any questions. But with that, I can just go ahead by introducing myself. My name's Abraham Salinas. I'm a senior analyst or project lead here at the city manager's office for the city of Brentwood, and I am the lead for the economic development grant program. Thanks for joining me. I think this is the biggest turnout. I've hosted these workshops for the past 3 years. So it's good to hear that our outreach was effective. And just to start, don't worry, this will all be recorded. We'll post it on the city's website, and we'll also send it out to all the participants, everyone who registered and everyone who attended. So just wanted to put that out there for you guys. So a brief agenda. I introduced myself. I don't think we have enough time to go around here. Typically, if it was a smaller group, we'd had everybody introduce themselves. You can say hi in the chat. Everyone is feel free to introduce yourselves. If you're a business, nonprofit, go ahead and use the chat feature if you'd like. I'll be going over a little bit of the background of the grant program and the history of the business license tax certificate. That's what primarily funds this grant program. Go over what the priority projects are and the competitive grants. This workshop is solely focused on the competitive grants. So just to put that out there, and we'll dive into the program guidelines and follow up with the application itself, some of the questions, things to look out for, so on and so forth. And then wrap it up with the Q&A session. A little bit of background on the grant program itself. It was started back in 2002 when Brentwood residents voted to amend the city's business tax certificate. This allowed 20% of the total revenue collected from that tax to be set aside for economic development purposes, and that's where this grant program was born. All funds are approved by the city council, and that's how it's been for a while now. Back in 2013, the city council established 2 categories of funding for the economic development grant program: the priority projects and programs and events that I mentioned earlier. These are approved every 2 years. And then what we're here to talk to about today is the economic development grants, these competitive grants that are opened up to most folks, and they're competitive and it's on an annual basis. And since 2004, the city's awarded a little over $3 million in grant funding towards these projects and programs. So quite a bit of impact there. All right, so I'll be going to the program guidelines. All this is available in detail online. I'll be providing links towards the end for everybody to access to. I'll send it in a follow-up email as well. You'll be given access to the program guidelines as well as the application. So I won't go over every single detail today. I'll cover quite a bit, but I would strongly encourage it to carefully review the guidelines. There's some important details in there. We'll start off with who can apply. So any organization or business with a current Brentwood business license, that's that business tax certificate that I mentioned. You can apply online or here at City Hall, or the proof of exemption from a business license requirement, which is typically applied to a nonprofit. So in the case you're a nonprofit, you must provide the proof of active status from the California State Secretary of State when you do submit your application. So I'll go over the specific requirements here of what qualifies as a project or program. Just a very important thing to note, this funding is not intended to solely benefit an individual business. This funding does not qualify for that. So if you're looking to purchase equipment solely for your business or improve your patio or install some um, new improvements at your business, this funding is not meant for that. So just wanted to start by pointing that out. And this project or program must occur within the City of Brentwood limits or clearly benefit Brentwood and its residents or businesses. And the project or program must take place between July 1st of 2025 through or by June 30th of 2026. It must not involve discrimination or violate any anti-discrimination laws. This will be, clearly defined in the disclosure form. And lastly here, you must include an estimated budget that provides the estimated expenses, revenues, and net revenue, if applicable. I can cover this in the budget section towards the end in more detail. And then lastly here, if there is net revenue, just a brief explanation of, how those funds will be used. So the use of funds, there's a lot more detail in the guidelines. I can also provide some follow-up if people have questions. So operational expenses directly tied to the project or event. Fundraising is allowed, but must clarify how they'll be used. And what's not allowed is salaries, benefits, or pass-through payments, meaning, the payments or funding can't be directed to a third party or another group or organization. Some additional requirements. This is a reimbursement-based grant program. Just to point out, past recipients can request up to 50% of their total grant award if they are awarded. For any new awardees, you can request a full reimbursement after your project is complete or implemented. If you are hosting an event, will be required to provide insurance, not necessarily at the time of your application, but, through the city's event permitting process. And then the use of the city logo is required to be on all promotional materials. And then lastly, if any scripts are developed, they must be submitted for review due to 2 weeks prior to project or event. That one is, again, more clearly defined in the guidelines. And I'll stop real quick. Is the funding or grant program available for real estate in the unincorporated area of Brentwood? I need to follow up with you on that one. Necessarily can't benefit an individual. It can't benefit one business. But if it is in real estate, an unincorporated area, I mean, it could be a community event, it could be a community-wide project. I'd have to, follow up with more questions on that one. So we'll dive into the program application. Obviously, the requirements and the guidelines are very important just to make sure you're covering everything from the eligibility and use of funds. But the program application is, I would say, the most important piece because this is a competitive grant program. I just highly recommend you take your time with the application. I'll go over when it's due and the timeline, but these questions are very important. They're scored individually, and that's how us, the staff, recommend the funding awards. It's based off of what you're submitting here in the application. And also for, past awardees, any previous programs or events are assessed because you do have to submit your past final report as a requirement of applying for funding once again. So I'll just go, I'll provide an overview of the application itself rather than scrolling through it. And it's not very exhaustive. but I just thought this would be a little bit easier to look at. So the application is kind of broken into these sections. Um, Obviously your project information, very high level stuff, when it's going to be, where it's going to be, estimated number of participants, so on and so forth, your funding request, some city services or fee waivers that might be required of you to implement the project or program. And then lastly, your acknowledgement and signature when you are ready to submit. And I can answer Jessica's question here. Can a restaurant in Brentwood apply for the grant? Um, It can, again, it just can't benefit the restaurant directly itself. If it's a collaborative effort, for example, in a certain shopping area, or it's a citywide program and it's an idea of that restaurant, sure, it can. If it's a training program for other restaurants and, not just the restaurant's employees, for example, that can, we can, discuss in further detail offline. But yeah, if it's if it's purchasing equipment, providing improvements for the restaurant, it does not qualify for this grant. So the application has 6 questions. Again, they're scored differently out of 100 points. So question number 1 is worth 10 points. It's again describe the project or event in detail, the purpose and goals of it, the location, time, and other key information. And then secondly, it's a little tricky, but that's why I provided the link. Again, I'll provide it in a follow-up email and give you that resource. So how does the project align with with the current city council goals and strategic plan, or the city's overall economic development plan and efforts? And how will the project achieve positive publicity for Brentwood throughout the region? It's a big question, but again, it's why it's weighted 20 points. It's very important to see, and understand what are the city council's goals and how does your project or event or program support these goals, and how does it align with economic development efforts such as job creation, increasing tourism, providing job training, right? Business improvements, marketing efforts, all those kinds of things that help sustain Brentwood's economy. Again, this is being funded through the business license tax. So the city's, strategically investing in projects and programs that do benefit the city, create those jobs that I mentioned, and maybe result in opening or expanding of new businesses. And here's that link. It'll provide 2 city council goals. Within that is also the economic development goals as well. It is from 2023, 2024. The city's currently working on the new plan, but you can refer to this as it still will support you in answering this question. Question number 3. Um, Similar to the previous one, but it's very specific. How will the project increase shopping and tourist activity in Brentwood while also demonstrating a maximum impact on the city's economic development? So again, just an example, there's a lot of special events, some hosted on Brentwood Boulevard, others here at City Park and downtown and other areas. So does it result in, thousands of people coming to downtown and, attending the project or event, but also, shopping at the local restaurants or shopping at the local stores? Does it result in people coming outside of town into Brentwood to spend their dollars here? Which all this directly results in supporting the city's economic development, local economy, so on and so forth. Compared to the second question, this one's 30, the previous one was 20. So this is one of the most important ones. So take your time. It doesn't have to be long-winded. Short and concise answers are good too, but it's just, taking as much effort as possible to make sure you're answering this one um, to the best of your abilities. And again, if you have any questions about any of these specific ones, please let me know. I'm more than happy to elaborate. Question number 4. Will it support small business development? Does it provide training education? Does it create jobs, right? Does it increase sales for multiple businesses, not just one? Does it provide marketing in a specific sector, or even the city in general, right? You can get really creative, although sounds broad. This one is just directly tied to small business development, but it's weighted 15 points. Not going to read it in great detail, but it's very important. Again, just the city wants to ensure these dollars are used in a responsible manner. Folks are responsible fiscally, and the funds are managed responsibly, right? It's very important to the city to understand this, so which is why we asked for the budget. Although it's an estimate, in the final report, once you're requesting your reimbursement, that final report does include what was spent, where it was spent, and just to provide an understanding of the impact of the project. So this one is weighted 20 points. So please pay attention to that one. Be as detailed as possible. Just explain the management structure too of your organization or your project, and how it's going to be implemented successfully. And then lastly, although it's 5 points, it still, gives a leg up. Is the project new or a first-time event? It could be the same organization, but is it something that they haven't done before? Or it's a new organization or a nonprofit or a new business. And then obviously what fill or need can the project or program provide in the community that's not already existing? Um, and that's the last of the questions for the application. Does anybody have any questions regarding um, the application questions so far? I know I kind of flew through them a little bit, but just thought I'd take this moment to pause. Feel free to raise your hand as well. All right, see none. Feel free to drop a question in the chat. Send it directly to me too. Um, More than happy to answer any questions also at the end. All right, so here's an overview. I did get a question in the chat. I'll answer it briefly. But like I said, 100 points total. This is how they're weighed. Question one with the 10 points. Biggest question, I guess point-wise, is number 3, increasing shopping and tourist activity and support economic development. So just be sure to, answer them to the best of your ability, as that's what we'll be scoring them and providing funding recommendations based off of. So what's the maximum grant amount? Currently, there is no maximum grant amount, but just want to put it out there. We're still working on getting the amount available for this year, but on average, the city has had about $150,000 to $180,000 available for grant funding, and typically we get about anywhere between 12 to 20 grant applications. So the funding is limited, it is competitive. Just considering, again, on average, the city only has a total amount of $150,000 to $180,000 for any given grant program year. So although there's not a maximum, it's just considering that when you are applying for a grant, what's available, how much are you asking for, and then especially looking at your budget. It's very important to understand how much you're asking for and then how much the total cost is for your project or program. It's also taken into consideration by staff, the LUD committee, which I'll cover in a little bit, and eventually the city council. It's very important to just understand how much funding is available when you are requesting it. That was a great question. Any others? All right. I'll move on. We're good on time so far. So this is the estimate budget form I was mentioning earlier. Revenues broken down into what your grant funding request is, if there are any sales, tickets, sponsorships. Also, the city does provide fee waivers, and then other sources of revenue such as donations. And then your expenses, obviously it's broken down here, but any major expenses such as contractual services, so some people rent porta potties, other rent stages, all those kinds of things. But again, this does not cover any staff salaries or benefits, so that should not be included in here. Um, although free field too, because it does provide an estimated overall budget, but just that won't be taken into consideration for when you're looking for reimbursement. We can't cover that cost. And then at the end, is there any not profit or even a loss? An explanation if it is projected. Understanding some projects are solely to benefit the community. That's totally fine. But if there's a loss, it's just explaining why it's there. Or if there's a profit, what will they be used for, those funds? All right, I got another question. I'll pause right here. So who's received grants in the past and what are their topics? I'm not going to go through all of them. There's been so many in the past 20 years. But primarily it's been a wide variety of community-based events. Um, I'm not going to call it specific ones, but I mean, I can because it is public information anyway, so it's fine. So it's just things as like Oktoberfest, La Gran Fiesta, um, other programs. The chamber did small business in-person training last year, and they were rewarded for that. Um, Dia de los Muertos, there's a big, mostly cultural events, Diwali as well, the Holy Festival. This past year, there was the Lunar Year Festival with the Chinese Cultural Club from one of the high schools. So it's a wide range, but that's primarily what this program has funded. And I can give you specifics. I just have to, see if there's a given year you're interested in, and I can simply provide last year's as well. And lastly, as part of your application, just making sure you're covering all these things. I'll be reaching out to anybody who submits things. This won't disqualify you if it's not submitted, but please make sure just to speed up the process. Once we do stop reviewing applications, if they are incomplete, they cannot be considered. So please make sure to just look at this checklist. It's in the guidelines. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. And I'll also be following up to those who submit if there's anything missing at the time of submittal. So this acknowledgement, I'm not going to go through it. It's pretty much just acknowledging the program guidelines that I went through. Again, just encourage everybody to review them in detail, just to make sure your project or program are following all of them. And again, it's just to ensure you understand the requirements, because if some of these are not met, that will put the project at risk of not being eligible for being reimbursed for the funding. So it's just making sure everything is covered. If you do have any questions, again, especially here, because it does involve the reimbursement of funds, please do reach out. I'm your main point of contact. Like I mentioned, guidelines and application are available online. I can provide printed copies. Will be available here at City Hall. And I'm here for pre-submittal support. Whether it's a specific question, you want to learn more, we can set up a meeting, Zoom, in person, phone call, however you want. More than happy to sit down with you and answer any questions I can. And then here, if you don't have a business license, that's okay. You can apply for one here. We have plenty of staff to help you guide through that as well. And here's our estimated timeline. So the application did open on April 7th. And the deadline to submit is April 28th. That's a Monday, no later than 11:59 p.m. If it is late, it will not be considered. If there's one or two things missing, that's okay. But please make sure that is submitted on time. and there's an email. I'll send it in the follow-up as well. Please do send those complete applications. Make sure they're signed and initialed in that acknowledgement form at the time of submittal as well. Then staff will be reviewing between April 29th and May 9th. And we'll be, analyzing everything and then preparing our funding recommendations for the Land Use and Development Committee for the meeting of the May 19th. That's when staff will be presenting our recommendations to that committee, which is made up of council members and planning commissioner. And then they'll, assess the applications, our funding recommendations, have a pretty in-depth discussion regarding the applications and the funding amounts recommended by staff. And then they'll develop their own recommendations, and then those will be presented to the full city council for consideration at the June 10th city council meeting. Again, this is tentative, but as of now, that's the timeline for this year's grant program. All right, right on time. I guess we're at about the half-hour mark. That covers my presentation. More than happy to stick around. We do have the next half hour. If anyone wants to have a more in-depth discussion, we can kind of open it up. I know there's 32 of us right now, so I can try and take on as many questions as I can. I'm here for you. And I got a hand up. Just let me see.
Hello. I apologize. I was on the Zoom. However, I was double booked, unfortunately, and was on a work call. Is this Zoom conference being recorded where I could get a video? I mean, I can be able to review it later and then email if I have questions.
Yep, of course. Yeah, it's being recorded, and it'll be available online, and it'll be sent to all the program participants.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I was like, they kept talking, and I was like, I need to go.
Not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? I got Greg.
Good morning, Abraham and everybody. How are you? Can you hear me?
I'm great, Greg. I can't hear you.
Good. Hey, so question, with the grant program, you also mentioned fee waivers. So can an organization apply for a grant, be awarded a grant, and then also apply for a fee waiver, or is it one or the other?
You can apply for both. And I know this was a topic of discussion the past couple years. Some organizations are using grant funds to pay for city fees. So it's kind of, so, it's just dealt with that way. Unfortunately, the city can't recover a lot of the cost, but you can receive a waiver. There is a cap. I believe it's $5,000 per organization per fiscal year. But you can receive that fee waiver as well as apply for a grant.
So
But
again, so the people should know then, they could apply for the grant, maybe not get the grant, but that would not preclude them from still applying for a fee waiver, correct?
that is correct.
Good.
Yeah.
And then lastly, just I'm hoping that's going to be good news, as you mentioned the amount of money that we give out with companies like Costco coming to town next year. Would we all assume that that amount of grant money would go up because of the tax revenue generated by a place like Costco?
Yeah. So, I mean, in a perfect world, yes, Greg, but this is a business license tax revenue. So it'll be Costco's business license, not
Okay.
its tax revenue that it's actually producing for the city. That tax revenue will go to the general fund. But whatever their business license tax is, might increase it a little bit, but that funding won't,
Yeah.
be available for this.
Thank you for the clarification. That's right. It was the tax license, not the sales tax.
Yeah, although but the tax license is based off of revenue, so there's a calculation for that. So it'll be a good chunk.
Thank you.
Hmm. Great questions. We got plenty of time, so whether you want them to do it, I got a bunch of questions in the Q&A. Sorry if I didn't see that. Um, you can raise your hand, or I can start going down the line here with the Q&A if I haven't already answered some. All right. Start with the easy ones. When is the grant open? So it opened on April 7th. It was a big announcement. We tried to do our best to announce it, but I'm glad you're here. It will close on April 28th. So it's a little bit around the corner. Again, 6 questions. Does take some time to write, but it's not an exhaustive application. But the deadline to submit is April 28th. The application is available right now. And the time for that deadline is 11:59 p.m. So I'm sure not everybody wants to be filling out a grant on a Monday, but that's their deadline for this year. All right. Let me see. What's the cap? Yeah, there is no cap on the grant applications. Again, there's no limit, but again, we have very limited funding. It is a competitive grant program. We get anywhere between 15 to 20 applications, and we have limited funding this year. It's just estimate. I haven't got the final numbers from finance yet, but we're probably looking at $150,000 to $180,000 available total. So spread that out with 20 applicants. It's somewhat limited. Just consider that when you're requesting the amount you're requesting. Can I elaborate the July 1st to June 30th deadline? Your project just has to happen between those dates. That aligns with our fiscal year. So, if your project is on June 30th of this year, you can apply for that. Or if it is in September of 2025 or even February of 2026, you you can apply for this funding. Believe I answered all the questions in the Q&A. If not, just please let me know. I see one. Is there a format in which the application could be submitted in? Yeah, there's a fillable PDF. I'll be following up after this meeting. I can't do that right now. With the link that provides the application and the guidelines. The fillable PDF. You're gonna have to print it out so you can sign it physically with the actual pen, and then that'll be emailed to that email address provided in the guidelines as well in the application. All right, another question. Is it possible if their business needs 50,000 or 40,000, does it get approved? Um, I'd have to follow up with you on that one. It depends. Again, this funding cannot benefit an individual business. Whether it's you're paying for new equipment or installing a window, what have you. It can't pay for that. It also can't pay for salaries. It depends. If a business is implementing a community event, for sure, or providing, training or marketing for multiple businesses, that might be eligible as well. It really comes down to what the project or programs being proposed. Are there other grant opportunities for new businesses in Brentwood? I mean, there's some state, some local. For Brentwood itself, this is the only one at the moment. Although the city has funded some facade improvement grants in the past. More recently, it was funded through, COVID relief funds. But we're in a little bit of a funding pinch right now at the state and local level, even federal level for small businesses. It's limited. But if you are interested in more other opportunities, please contact me directly. That's the assistance I provide for any business, whether it's technical assistance or you do need grants or access to capital. I can help you guide. I can help guide you in the right direction. Any questions in the chat? Just want to check. All right. So I'm gonna read it out loud. The application requirements mention insurance coverage. What is the minimum required and does it have to be separate from business insurance? It depends. If you are implementing an event, um, that'll be different insurance than your current business if you are a business. If it's a special event, again, it comes down to how big it is, if there's street closures, if there's going to be alcohol served. It all comes down to what the actual event or project is. Um, if it's out of your own business and you're providing a service or a program for the community, I'm sure your business insurance would cover it. Again, this is more of a case by case basis, but that essentially covers that insurance requirement. It's mainly for the community events, but in the case you need a special event permit, we'll cover that base once we get there, and that'll be through the Parks and Recreation Department. What does a business license mean? Every business that's operating in Brentwood, or does business with Brentwood, the city itself, requires a business license. I mentioned this earlier in the presentation. It'll also be in the PowerPoint slide deck that I send as a follow-up. There's more detail on there, but it's just to operate a business in Brentwood or do business with the city. New question in the chat. If I have multiple events and I want to propose, do I submit one application or multiple? Um, if it's multiple events with the same theme, maybe just one application. But I think in terms, it really comes down to how many, right? If you're hosting two completely different types of events, definitely submit two different applications. Again, it would be unfortunate because we can only score and recommend funding for one application. So it just depends on how many you have. But if they're different events, definitely different applications. Again, it's a very short application form. Um, Although please do take your time in answering the questions. But if it is multiple events, I'm leaning more towards multiple applications. Great questions. Please keep them coming. Still got 19 minutes. Free to raise your hand as well. Do have one in the Q&A. The business makes holistic food for dogs and it will be creating jobs. How do I make sure the grant benefits my business launch? In that case, it's not eligible. It can't benefit your business launch. It can't benefit an individual business. So it has to be more of like a training program of some sort. It's, offering technical assistance to multiple businesses. It's more a community-wide benefiting one. Although businesses do, benefit the community, it can't be an individual business. Do I know the cost of entering the makers market? The city doesn't manage the makers market. I might be able to connect you with the folks who do manage it. I'm not sure what the estimate is there, and I think the farmers market's around $200 to $300 last time I checked. But again, more than happy to connect you with those folks. Those are managed separately. Yes, and it's a year for your booth. It might be for the actual, no, it's for every event, I think. But again, I don't deal with the makers market or farmers market. I can connect you with park staff who do help with that and the actual organizers. Is it eligible for the grant cost? If it's just your business, no. Can't benefit one business. If it's a nonprofit, potentially, I think it really comes down to the project or idea. But if it is multiple, if it does meet the guidelines and requirements, you can definitely apply. And we do offer application assistance. So if you want to set up a meeting and go through it, I'm more than happy to do that as well. The grant program can provide funding for programs. There's some nonprofits that provide training. If there's if you're helping, provide new skills for either businesses or employees, for multiple, businesses or organizations in the same sector or similar sector, that's also eligible. If you're partnering with a nonprofit that provides a specific service, it can fund that as well. Again, for an example, we partnered with the SBDC and the Chamber of Commerce. They're providing in-person training for small businesses. They come to this community center. They get one-on-one assistance and advising with the SBDC advisors. It's a small business development center. They're out of the CSU East Bay, and they help businesses start, write business plans, find funding, all kinds of things. And that's a year-round program. So something like that. Although again, primarily this program has funded events. Happy to answer more questions. Feel free to raise your hand. We got about 15 minutes or so. And again, we don't need to stick around the whole time. I just want to give the floor to anybody who wants, takes it as an opportunity. Sometimes your question will help others if we're all here in the same space. So please do to ask away. I'll drop some of those resources I mentioned in the chat if anyone wants to take those. Give me 1 second while I do that. I got a new question. When's the deadline for the event/training to happen? So it'll be June 30th of 2026. It absolutely has to happen by then. So you pretty much have until July 1st of 2025 this year through June 30th of 2026. That just aligns with city's fiscal year. So the program or project has to happen within that time frame. Look, here we go. So I just dropped the guidelines and applications in the chat. I'll give you some information about the grant program, but those are the actual documents and the application itself. That's the email address, economicdevelopment@brentwoodca.gov. Please submit by no later than April 28th, 11:59 p.m. Anyone else? We can still got 20 people in the room. Yes, so someone might be asking about the Small Business Development Center, the in-person training offered here at the city. I will see if I can find a link real quick and I can drop it in the chat. You can call, submit information request form, also set up an appointment. I'll provide that shortly for you. There's the link to the in-person advising in Brentwood. They're a great resource. They're always around. They're a free service. I think you can get up to 10 free sessions and they'll still continue them if needed at beyond that. So whether you need business, just advising generally, planning, marketing, looking at your finances, all that, they're a great resource. They got about 20 different advisors. So I highly recommend you contact them. Some examples of past grantees for a ballpark example. The city hasn't funded through the grant program a ballpark, but I can provide some examples just off the top of my head. So the city has funded the ice skating rink here in downtown, around the holidays. It's around for about a month or so. It's provided some grant funding support to support that community event that does go for a wide period of time. It's also funded, like I said, the Lunar Year Festival this past year, La Gran Fiesta as well. It's a multicultural event, primarily with Hispanic community, but also provides booths and all kinds of food from everywhere. Um, uh, Oktoberfest as well, the Turkey Trot, just to name a few. Great questions. Still got about 16 people here. Please do raise your hand. Happy to set up a follow-up meeting. I'll drop my contact information in the chat as well. Thanks, everybody. Got about 7 minutes left. I'll stick around. No problem at all. Happy to have a one-on-one as well. Thanks, everyone. See some people saying goodbye. There's some folks want their lunch. I'm good though. Yes, please do. Feel free to share your application with me before you do submit. Please do so ahead of time so I have some time to give you valuable feedback. There's some great feedback. Thanks, everybody. Had about 4 minutes. Some great questions coming in. Thank you, everybody. Any last questions? We're down to the last 2 minutes. Appreciate the great questions. Keep me on my toes. That about brings us to the top of the hour. Thanks to everybody. I'll be sending a follow-up email to everyone who attended and registered. Again, please look out. Deadline to submit April 28th. Feel free to reach out. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.